Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 3rd of February of 2024. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. As we discussed in the morning, the United Kingdom has some plans how to deal with the situation in 2024. They're supposed and they're planned to move forces to the western part of Ukraine. We have already discussed this plan, but everything is okay from the United Kingdom side, but it's not okay with the allies, because for example, today the president of Poland, Andrzej Duda, reported and told that Crimea is the part of Russia. It was his words. It's nothing. It's not like a deep fake or something like this, or the video that was made by the Neuralink. It's a real video of the real president of Poland who was saying that Crimea belongs to Russia. And from many perspectives, and the main reason is that historically this territory was under Russian control more that in comparison with the Ukrainian control over the same territory. So this is the first betrayal of Ukraine, and with this tempo, with this situation, obviously we're not going to talk about any operation in the western part of Ukraine under the leadership of United Kingdom. When talking about Ukraine itself, of course, the meaning and opinions, there are different opinions about the situation. For example, one generals are saying one thing, other generals are saying another thing. For example, the general of 110th Brigade, Territorial Defense Brigade, calls for the authority to apprehend draft dodgers and to resist TCC workers by shooting them in the knees. So imagine yourself, the general of Ukrainian army, the real authorities, the real person who has the same rights as those, the same mobilized people that everyone in Ukraine, asking and saying that if you don't want to serve in Ukraine army, then some authorities, some soldiers should shoot you in your knees. So this is his approach how to win Russia. I'm not sure that this is a very effective approach. I think that this approach, I believe, can bring Russia to victory than Ukraine. Other generals are saying that regarding the situation with everything, Russia are able and can easily start another offensive operation in direction of Kiev this year, and now they're regrouping, and if they complete this regrouping successfully, obviously they will do this attack. But these are generals, they're always somewhere in the sky. They're not completely familiar with the situation on the ground, because the Ukrainian soldiers, for example, Spiegel published another interview with another Ukrainian soldiers, with the person who faced the real situation on the ground, and this person, for example, told Spiegel that we are forced to, let's say, share the trenches with the dead bodies, because from 100 soldiers of a company, only 20 can continue war, and 80 is already or either wounded or dead. And this is the reason, this is the reality. And as you can see, he's not talking about United Kingdom plan about entering the western part of Ukraine. He's not talking about whether Crimea is Russian or Ukrainian. He is not talking about possible second attack in direction of Kiev, and of course he's not talking about shooting the knees of those who is in the civilian life and who is not here, who is not in the hell like in Krink or something like this. The only thing he talks about is that they need to share their trenches with already died people. This is the reality. And of course, now we're moving to the situation on the ground, because we have a lot of very interesting details and updates and geolocations. And first we're going to talk about Krink as usually, but today I would like to share with you one important video that shocked me very much, and not just shocked, that I was very, let's say, I was amazed by the video, and I had a lot after I watched this video, after I finished this video, I had more questions than the answers to them. This video was published by the Russian sources. This is not a part of propaganda. This is not like a Ukrainian video. This is Russian video. On this video, we can see the author of this video described the process and the work of artilleries and tanks from hidden positions. You know that sometimes you can use tanks somewhere in the forest and you can attack by coordinates. You don't know exactly, you can't see exactly where you're attacking, but you know where exactly you need to attack, and let's say a drone or somebody corrects and let's say target your attacks. So what is so important, what's so interesting in this video? There's nothing special in this attack of tank from hidden position. The most important is the target that this tank was trying to hit and to destroy. Now we are moving to this video, to this episode. Just pay attention and take a look at very weird picture. and now we are getting here. For example, on this video, just a second, we can see a barge. I was very shocked by this video. This is barge in Dnipro River, and this is Ukrainian barge, and this is, as you can see, a very big barge, and the Ukrainian-Russian tank was attacking this barge. First, few things you need to note about this video. First of all, this video was geolocated, and this barge was moving here. And another important thing is that this barge is armored barge. You see, tank had damaged the barge, but nothing happened to this barge. The Russians haven't shown us the results of that attack, which means that the barge was very armored. And this is new tactics that Ukrainians start using, because the tactic of use of fast boats is not good, because the Russians control this territory completely with FPV drones, and the number of boats, I don't know how to say, let's say just maybe 20 of 100 boats are able to reach the Russian bank of the river, and the 80 can be destroyed by the Russian FPV drone strikes. And this armored barge is something like at least solution at this stage of the special military operation. This is the first important thing, that the Ukrainians changed the tactics, and obviously the next days they're going to use these barges for redeployment of forces from one bank to another. And another important thing is that this video was geolocated, as I told you. To understand the situation, it's better to increase the number of days, let's say since the beginning of this month of February. If you remember, a few days ago we were talking about possible Ukrainian foothold in Krynki, that they might open another foothold, created another foothold a little bit to the southwest from original position. We were talking about the close combat between Ukrainian and Russian soldiers here, that there was like a fight there. And if we take a look once again at the possible creation of Ukrainian foothold, because yet we haven't received even a single geolocated confirmation, neither from the Russian nor from the Ukrainian side, about the situation there, whether the situation was resolved or there is a foothold. And if you take a look at the area where the barge was moving to, we see that these areas is like very close to each other, and it's like logistic finish of barge entering this area. So if we draw some arrows, we understand that either barge or maybe boats then we're moving along this river, and then they entered Lagerska Konka and, let's say, landed their infantry here. I'm not saying anything, I'm just trying to say that for the previous 3 days we got at least 2 very weird videos from this direction. One video tell us that there might be a Ukrainian foothold in this area, and now we see the video of Ukrainian armored barge moving in direction of Russian positions. So very weird. And I know for sure, I'm not saying that Ukrainians managed to establish the foothold, I'm just saying that this area obviously is covered with the fog of war, and we need more time to understand what exactly is happening there. Now we're moving further, just about the original, let's say, foothold of Krynki. Nothing special. FPV drone strikes. Either the Russians and the Ukrainians attack each other during the daylight, during the night period of time, with the purpose to, first of all, discover each other and to reduce forces of each other. The same story along original river, because when talking about fast boats, the Ukrainians tried to use this route to redeploy forces, and mainly they used this route to redeploy forces to original Krynki foothold. But this is something new. Anyway, something new. We have more videos from the Russian side. More boats were destroyed during more attempts to send infantry and forces. So when talking about this, nothing special, nothing new. Now we're moving to Zaporizhzhia area, and we got some updates. We have some intensifying of actions in the vicinity of Kupiansk. The Russians were attacking the Ukrainian forces with FPV drones in Kupiansk and in Stepovo. The main supply road, road 0812, was under very heavy fire. We see that, and very likely, and all these geolocations tell us that very likely the Russians will make some attacks within the next few days. When talking about Rabotino Verbova, there is nothing important, just regular FPV drone duels without any changes on the ground. More interesting updates are coming from Novomykhailovka, from this territory. As we discussed in the previous video, the Russians have already established complete control over the supply and support roads that goes to the north of Novomykhailovka to the old Ukrainian defense belt, this one. Now, according to the information we have and according to mappers, the northern strongholds are under complete Russian control, and so that's why there is no chances for the Ukrainians even to, let's say, counterattack, because the roads that Ukrainians can use for these possible counterattacks is under complete Russian FPV drone control. When talking about new updates, we got the final geolocated confirmation of Russian progress and that the Russians managed to establish control over the stronghold by the name of Zverinets. This video was published by the official Russian channel. On this video, we can see the Russian engineer forces that were, let's say, demining the territory, that were demining fields, cleared fields, that were prepared this foothold for further offensive operations. So, the video of engineer forces in the stronghold by the name of Zverinets. Two important things that we need to understand about this video. First of all, if there are engineers, obviously the main forces are much ahead of them. So somewhere, let's say, on the new defense belt along these two strongholds, while the Russian engineer force cleared this area and prepared this area probably for concentration of tanks or maybe some other different purposes, the main Russian forces are fighting a little bit further to the southwest from the main direction. So obviously that means that the Russians are getting closer and closer to Novomykhailovka, and that very soon they will make the attacks we were talking about during the previous videos. Interesting updates are coming from the line Krasnogorovka, Novomaximilianovka. The Russians continue clearing operation. They attack and destroy the Ukrainian artillery forces with Lancets. They continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions, FPV drone operators inside of Georgievka with FPV drones, and the Russians continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions in Krasnogorovka itself with artillery attacks and so on. So from one perspective, nothing special, but from another point of view, we see that the Russians continue their offensive operation. They are still in this area and they will push and push and push. Now we're moving to Avdiivka area. We have lots of very interesting details. First, let's start from the southern part. As you can see, we have adjusted the map based on this geolocated video. On this video, we can see how the Ukrainians were hiding their armored vehicles somewhere in the underground facility and the underground shelter. But as a result of FPV drone strike, another Ukrainian armored vehicle or personnel carrier was damaged or even destroyed. And based on that, we changed the color of map because we understand that former air defense base is under complete Ukrainian control, or at least the northern part of it. But to complete the story of this territory, we need to increase the numbers of updates since the beginning of months. It will give us a better understanding of the situation. As you can see, there are lots of geolocations, and all these geolocations is like around this former air defense base. Let's start from the southern one. On this video, for example, that was published by the Ukrainians, we can see how the Ukrainian FPV drones were attacking the Russian infantry forces, the concentration of Russian forces in the trenches in this area. There are a lot of Russians in one trenches, and probably these are stormtroopers, and this video confirms the Russian concentration and this, let's say, in this sector. Another video we got, let's say, from the eastern flank of the former air defense base. On this video, we see how the Ukrainians of 110th Brigade were bombing the Russian tanks and abandoned armored vehicles on the eastern flank of the same territory, which also confirms some concentration and existence and presence of Russian forces on this sector as well. When talking about the northern geolocations, we discussed them yesterday. On these videos, we can see very heavy bombing of Ukrainian positions with flamethrower systems. Significant number of missiles were sent in this area, a lot of explosions, a lot of damage. Currently, this is the base of Ukrainian defense of former air defense base, and we see the damage the Russians dealt to this territory during the previous days. And another video from the same territory. All these videos, all these geolocations can mean just one thing. First of all, the Russians have concentration on one flank, they have concentration on another flank. The Russians, due to the geolocations and updates we had in the past, have their forces in Chernyshevskovo, Sportivna and Soborna Street in the vicinity of Tsarskaya Okhota, and very likely within the next few days the Russians will renew their offensive operation to this residential area by the name of Vinogradniki, with the purpose to cut the base of former air defense base defense. So this is going to be the first attack, obviously, and two attacks from this direction as well. So this picture, at least to me, reminds the first encirclement of Ukrainian forces, in former air defense base. Even if this territory wasn't captured by the Russians during the first stages of offensive operation, obviously we see that this territory is encircled right now, and the Ukrainians in this area are stuck and they don't have possibilities to withdraw or retreat from these positions. So this is the first encirclement. Let's see how this battle is going to be finished. When talking about the central part of Avdiivka, we have once again the videos of Russian bombings in the central part. As we discussed, currently this block is the intersection of the main logistic roads that Ukrainians still left in Avdiivka. This territory is the main concentration hub. If we increase the numbers of updates, we see the Russian certain focus. This is the only area that Ukrainians can use to support their forces, either in former air defense base in the southern part, in the central, in the eastern part of Avdiivka, and so on. When talking about the eastern part, we have the Russian bombings of a filtration station, which also confirms, let's say, the Russian plans and the Russian goals to start active ground operation on this direction as well. Of course, the most expected and the most interesting updates are coming from this territory. If you remember, yesterday we were talking about significant Russian progress along this residential area, and that the Russians managed to answer the central part of Avdiivka. And if you remember, we were talking that very likely that the Russians will try to establish control and to move along these streets, like this is Kostybinskaya line, Pionierskaya line, Zaliznichnaya line, Parkhomenko Street, Tolstovo line, so this sector. And we were talking that if the Russians are able to attack and to develop this foothold right to the railways, then they will be able to complete the battle for Avdiivka, let's say, completely, to finish this area. There's going to be just formal things of collapse of entire area. And we were expecting for some geolocations that can prove or not this theory, and today we start receiving the first updates of first FPV drone strikes on this direction. We see the Ukrainian vehicles, the Ukrainian positions, and the Russian drones were flying above this territory, and they were bombing the Ukrainians with the drones. And this video confirms that the Russians have some certain focus, and as you can see, this focus goes accordingly to our theory about the further Russian plans to collapse the defense belt in Avdiivka. So after the Russians clear this area, they will move forces here, then they will move their focus further to the east, to the west, and they will move step by step until they get the railways. And as soon as they get the railways, the entire battle of Avdiivka will come to its logical, let's say, part, the final stage of the clashes or something like this. Now we're moving further to Bahmut Artyomov's direction. We have some geolocations, and the most important updates are coming from the area between Klishchiivka and Andreevka. If you remember, during the previous phase of the special military operation, the Ukrainians managed to force the Russians to step back from positions along the railways, and now the Russians are trying to return these positions back. We have one geolocation with FPV drone strike against the Russian forces here. We will not watch this video because there was like bombings against the Russian infantry and there were a lot of casualties, and let's say not very good videos, so we will bypass, but this video confirms the Russian progress. Also, we have the video of Russian artillery preparation. There were at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 geolocated strikes, and all these strikes were geolocated, and this is something like artillery preparation, probably before the next Russian attempt to attack. All these videos tell us that the Russians tried not just to attack the Ukraine positions on this side of the railways, but also to establish complete control over the supply road that Ukrainians can use for deployment of forces. So, if to summarize, the Russians are planning to restore control over this territory, and very soon, and all these geolocations tell us that the Ukrainians have some, let's say, logistic road here, like this one, and that this road is under complete Russian fire control. That's with the purpose not to allow to redeploy some operational reserves for stabilization, and I believe that we're talking about hours, not even days, when the Russians will start publishing the videos from this territory. that this territory is under control, of course. Once again, as we discussed, the video published by the Ukrainian forces, by the Russian forces, the Ukrainian engineering machine was trying to create trenches along canal, and this engineering machine was damaged and destroyed by the Russian Lancet. This is a very important video because a few things we need to note. First of all, the Ukrainians, now we understand when talking about the global scope, the Ukrainians didn't expect at the beginning of even August or September, when there was an active phase for clashes for Klishchiivka, for Avdiivka, that someday they're gonna have to step back and then they're gonna have to run away in direction of Chasiv Yar. And of course they didn't expect that. They thought that the Russians are not able to force them to step back. But now we see that they're trying to build the trenches along canal with the purpose to stabilize and to have at least some chances to stop the Russians along this Siversk and Donbass canal. So if we return back to map, the Ukrainians are trying to build something like this, and not to allow the Russians to cross this yellow line, and not to allow the Russians to continue offensive operation further to the Chasiv Yar from the south, or to Konstantinovka, or to New York agglomeration, or something like this. So we'll see. When talking about Ivanovska, we continue receiving more and more videos from Kamerton Akhmat's forces. They continue storming, and we see that the number of videos, published number of videos, are intensifying every day. More and more videos we're getting, which means that active phase of the storm of Ivanovska is currently is ongoing process. Obviously, soon we start receiving the videos from inside of this territory. The Russians still haven't managed to penetrate the main Ukraine defense belt between Bogdanovka and Popovo forest. As I understand, these are the most powerful stronghold ever, and there are few lines of defense, 1, 2, 3, 4, and lots of natural barriers. So the Russians are just attacking with FPV drones without any chances to start the ground operation. Important updates are coming from Siversk direction. We got lots of videos how the Russians were bombing Siversk and the city by the name of Serebryanka. This is a very important video that confirms the further Russian plans. First of all, we need to understand that Ukrainians try to support their forces in Kremenная forest, and mainly they continue using the Siversk Donetsk as the main, let's say, logistic hub. What does it mean? And supply road. For example, as you can see, the Russians are bombing either Siversk and Serebryanka, and for you to know that this is the area of possible Ukrainian, let's say, regrouping and redeployment of forces from Siversk, the shortest, let's say, the shortest way how to redeploy forces from Siversk to first Serebryanka and then to Kremenная forest. So this is the shortest way, and we see that the Russians activated and increased the focus in this area, which means that they're planning not to destroy just Ukrainian forces and reserves, but to destroy pontoon bridges along Siversk Donetsk river with the purpose to cut Ukrainian forces on this foothold from a proper support and proper reinforced reserves, which also confirms the further Russian plans to continue offensive operation with the purpose to cut this area completely and to establish complete control and to get Siversk Donetsk river from the north. So the battle is about to intensify in this area as well. When talking about the Terny-Yampolovka direction, there are no changes since the previous update. The Russians once again control every single hill in this area, which give them complete superiority. The sources reported, the Western pro-Ukrainian sources, Deep State map confirms further Russian progress in direction of Terny-Yampolovka. Obviously, very soon we're going to receive more updates. I'll just update the map according to the Deep State. So this is something like this. This is something approximately the progress of the Russians. And once again, I'll remind you that Ukrainians will not be able to defend themselves along Zherebets for many reasons. One of them is that these territories in the lowland and the Russian control the hills. And the second one is supply roads. There are just few of them, 1, 2, maybe. This is probably the third supply road. This is fourth supply road, and maybe this is fifth supply road, and that's it. And that's it. No more supply roads. Maybe Ukrainians can use Tarskoye supply road. That's it. Maybe a few more additional, but this is nothing. And this is a very short and not very short and very small roads that is under complete Russian control, not just by artillery, but like I said, by FPV drones. At some point, the Russians need to move another 2 kilometers or 1 kilometers, and that's it. This story is going to be finished without any, let's say, resistance from the Ukrainian side. When talking about Kupiansk, Lyman direction, Kupiansk direction, we haven't received almost anything, just artillery strikes against Ukrainian forces in the triangle Stepovo-Novosilovka, Kislovka, Ivanovka, nothing special. And interesting video we received from Vovchansk. On this video we can see how the Russians destroyed another concentration of Ukrainian forces with FAB 500 or maybe FAB 250. But as you can see, as a result of strike, the entire building, the entire block was erased from the Google Earth map and from every map in the world. And obviously all these strikes, it's not just about to attack the territory defense forces or to find another Patriot hidden in this area. Obviously this is aviation and artillery preparation before the Russian next ground operation of creation of the buffer zone. If we increase the number of updates since January of 2024, you will understand what I'm talking about. Significant number of strikes, significant number of geolocations, significant number of explosions on the north and south and central, eastern, western part of Vovchansk. This is the next Russian target, and obviously the days are numbered when the Russians are going to launch a real ground operation with the purpose to create a buffer zone. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.